Good morning. The sun is shining brightly. The sky is blue with very little clouds today. Yes, today I want to talk about three very important concepts in language learning. They're very important both for people that might be living in countries where the language is spoken, but also especially for people that live in countries where it is not their mother tongue, especially for those who are learning another language of another country. So the first concept that I want to talk about is language environment, obviously. Language environment, obviously, is where you are. So, for example, obviously, if you live in a country where the language is spoken, for example, let's say Chinese, you live in that environment. So you get many sources of input all around you. What happens when you're not living in the country where the language you are trying to learn is situated? Well, you can create your own environment. 2 points I'm going to make now is that even those that live in the country where their language is spoken do not necessarily learn that language if they do not enter the environment actively to learn the language, to speak the language. For example, there are many migrants that come to Australia or to any other countries that never really learned to speak English. It's unfortunate. That's because even though they are in the environment, they are not in the environment. So if you do not live in the country that the language you are learning is spoken, it doesn't matter. You create your own environment. It may not be 100%, but certainly you can actively create it. I'll tell you how. I'll give you some examples. The second concept we talk about is language immersion. The same thing comes here. So language immersion is when you have regular, constant and increased input with the language you're learning. So this is very simple. Immersion does not mean that you have to be in the country. Immersion does not mean that you have to be present in the same environment. It involves also active participation on your part. So with the language environment and the language immersion, the ways to do that is well known to all of us. We have to set specific times, specific days, and be consistent. So you set a time Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where you would listen only to the language, to your target language. There are two types of listening, as we spoke before. There is careful, intensive and active listening where you're learning the language particularly, and secondly, obviously, casual learning. So I learn my language when I am driving to work. Sometimes I listen to it casually, and other times I listen to it intensively to learn the language. So if you're driving and you take half an hour or an hour to work, there you are. You have an hour or 2 hours of an environment where the language is spoken, where you're hearing it, where you are trying to speak it as well whilst you are driving. So, and reading, you can also spend even just half an hour a week to read, watch the news, and other things. And of course, a very important aspect of environment and immersion is to surround yourself with friends. With in the past we have pen pals, now we have internet pals that we can meet up and practice language once a week or twice a week at particular times. And that is in itself immersion. It's the same if you're living in a foreign country where you've migrated to. You need to come out of your shell and make friends, make contact with the locals, and engage in conversation and friendship. Finally, the third aspect of learning language, which I will now talk about, is language acquisition. So, if you're learning language as an adult, not in school, not at university, not academically, you do not have to learn in the same manner that you have been learning when you were in school, or through a textbook, or through a class. And there is no exams. You don't have to rely on particular levels, standards, although you can do that. So the main way to acquire a language is to listen, to interact, to create your environment, and listen, as we said, active listening and casual listening. Active speaking and face-to-face speaking, interacting with a person actively, and also speaking to yourself and practicing yourself. So in that sense, learning language needs only be listening to the language so that you can understand what people are speaking, and to be speaking correctly and accurately so that others will understand when you're speaking. So these are the two most important aspects that you can use for your increasing your environment of learning the language, your immersion, and obviously via acquisition, especially an adult learner that doesn't have to rely on textbooks and grammar and all the sentence structure. Okay, so let's summarize. The three very important concepts in language learning is the create your language environment, create and immerse yourself in the language by actively doing so, and thirdly, you can learn in a much more relaxed manner by language acquisition instead of the traditional, very pedagogic way of learning a language. So I hope that this will encourage you, even if you're not living in the country where the language is spoken, but also for those that have migrated overseas, that are trying to learn a new language in the country that they live in. It's the same process. If you like my channel and you've liked my video and you've learned something about it, yes, please give me a thumbs up. It's very important and I do appreciate it. And also, subscribe if you like, because I'll be talking giving you many more tips about language learning, not so much in terms of academic language learning, but practical language learning. Okay, I look forward to seeing you again, and yes, please put down any comments, please ask me any questions. I do look at them and I will try to answer as many as I can, and also your suggestions will be material for future videos as well. Thank you.